Welcome to Manny's Designs. This is a live stream for Ustream.tv and also recorded for YouTube to watch at your leisure. I'm doing some colour mixing with some of my old Artisan Windsor Newton water mixable oils. And basically they are an oil paint that you can use without terps, which is always a bonus. I'm just going to zoom in a smidgen so you can see what I'm doing and see if that will focus. So I forgot to press record earlier, so give me 2 seconds, see if I can get this to be slightly better. Does it like this? That's not too bad. So I've mixed them, I've got some colours out, so I've got quite a few, but because they're in the stash, I'm using them. So I've got zinc white for mixing, and I've got what's the other white called? I can't remember. It's completely gone out. Titanium white. So titanium white is for highlights and for using on its own. Zinc white is for mixing. Then there's a lamp black, Payne's grey, lamp black, and ivory black. We have a raw umber, raw sienna, Naples yellow, and yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, lemon yellow. We have a cadmium orange and a cadmium, what was that yellow one called? A cadmium orange hue. Then we've got cadmium red, Elysian crimson, and that's red Indian red. Elysian crimson, that's rose madder. Then we had some cerulean blue, French ultramarine, phthalo blue, and phthalo green. And I only put those out because they were there. So I've done a bit of, I made a green with cerulean and the lemon yellow to make a really bright green. And actually it's nearly dry. It's oil paint, but it's nearly dry. But that's going to take probably a day to dry. And then I was using the thinners, but they're kind of splitting, and I don't know why. They are splitting the colour. So it could be the paints are old and the thinners are okay, or the thinners are old and the paints are too old. But I'm using a little bit of water and it's working. Normally if you use too much water it will crack, but it's actually not doing that. So if I pop that here, and I've made my own gesso. Again, it's going to take a day to dry, is that really? I didn't use any gesso on here at all, and it's the paper is split, although this is oils very thinly used. I made a thinner gesso by mixing a glue, and I put baby powder in it, and this is quite a nice texture, and it's holding up quite well to oil paints. And then I made put another cup in, and that's made a really nice soft key, and it's made the page very, very stiff, almost like card. So that's going to be probably what I'm going to use. And again, it had a bit of a play with the colour on it, and that's going to probably take days to dry. This will probably take, oh, it's got a lie, it's dried. Here's dried, so it is quite warm here with the lamps. So adding the water to it and nothing else is actually working, which it doesn't normally. But I am working quite thin. So I'm going to put a blue on here. I'm going to put some more phthalo blue out. And I think these paints are quite old. Cerulean blue. They are quite old. I've had them probably a good 10. This set probably a good 10 years, maybe 20. I bought them because you can be in the same room with your children and there's no smell of terps. So that's quite good. So does that mean that we're not here? Ustream just does not like me. See if I can just put something. No. So I'm going to have to just bear with me, see if I can mend it. Hopefully that's worked. Let me see if that's worked. Sorry about that. Let me see if I'm back. I broke Ustream again. If I play with it, just does not like it. So right, so hopefully we're okay. So I quite enjoy playing with this. So I'm going to put a wash on, and this, I hope it's going to get better because I don't like this particular I don't like that. So I've got a large brush here, so I'm going to take my palette knife because I've put all the colours in a squishy corner, but I want it to work that way. So I'm going to make I'm going to take French ultramarine and kind of give it a bit of a water down, and it's behaving itself quite well actually. And I've got a damp brush. I'm pretty sure it's the paints because they say they are quite old. But again, this is oil paint on, and that's a little bit too thick, but it doesn't really matter because I can always do lots of other things with it. I think that's a mountain in the background, but I want rid of these circles. I don't know what they are, so I want rid of them. This is just a practice, so we can it's always a good idea to stay in the same direction. You can't put too much water with these though, because it just does not like it. So I'll have to buy some new things for the oil in the abbey because this isn't going to work. And I have some proper oil paints, again, I've not used for years, but they are perfectly alright, I know that. But there is a slight smell in the air of oil paints, but nothing compared with the terps that you would normally have. So I'm just giving it a very rough coat. Oh, hi Travis, welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is a live stream, hopefully still, recorded for ustream.tv and also for YouTube. I'm playing about with my water mixable oils. So I can then use watercolour and acrylics in my Harry Potter books, because I want some really realistic paintings going on there. So I've just got rid of that sky because I didn't like it. In fact, I think the sky is going to go down to there. Yeah, I'm going to change that. So again, it doesn't like a lot of water, but having said that, it's behaving itself very well. Bit of a disaster with the mixable oils and the fast drying medium. That was a bit of a disaster, but hey ho. So if I wash my brush out, which you can do, and that's what happens when you wash your blue brush out in your water, it just washes out, there's no terps, so that has got to be good. And then your brush just looks like that. So I'm quite liking this colour. Now if you look at this, this is what happened when I put the oil mixing thing in it. It went bitty. Now normally that's what happens when you add water to it. So that's split. So I need to get rid of that. And then that one split as well, because I did the same thing. It's all split. Now it possibly is because it's old. I don't know. But the bit that I did with just plain water didn't split. So I'm actually working with water. So it's like working with watercolours, which is a bit of a contradiction in terms. So it's either something to do with the paints are old or these are old. But I opened a new one. So I'll have to suss that out. But I'm just, because I've been in that horrible, nasty split stuff, I've got to clean my brush. But it's come out quite nice. So I'm just going to take a baby wipe and clean that. So if anybody's got any questions, pop them in caps. I mean, this is on paper, so it's not going to look like an oil painting. And I have actually stuck a hole in that. So that was a bit of a disaster as well. But never mind. As long as I keep away from there, we should be fine. So I now need and clean the palette knife. Instead of having the colours around here, I put all the colours here together. And using a palette knife, I'm taking them off. So I could do with a yellow ochre. Now, if you look at this yellow ochre, some oil came out with it. So I've remixed it now. I'm just using a drop of water. We'll see what happens. It should be like butter. So that's behaved itself quite well. And that's just adding a drop of water. So I have a damp brush. It's got a little bit of cleaning stuff on it. I have a damp brush. Can't do too much because I've put some water in here. And it will crack. It will go like the other one if you put too much water. But that's the consistency of single cream. And again, I work in the same with single cream in watercolour oils. And the thing is, I'm rather boring that way, I have to say. So we think that goes down there. And this is just, instead of doing a wash all over it, I didn't do a sienna wash, which you normally do. So I can go over there. And the beauty of oils is you can go back over everything again. It's fantastic for that. And I think I want the blue sky down here. So I need another brush. Wet the brush, and I can just take a bit of this off. And it's behaved itself quite well. It's not dried out because it's on a stay wet palette. Now some people put oils in the freezer. So if you Google, you'll find all sorts of weird and wonderful things that people do with their paints if they're not going to use them for a while. Now this one had the oil to it and this one didn't. This is just oil and water, oil paint and water. And I say oil paint, I mean Windsor Newton water mixable oils. So as I say, they are behaving themselves quite well. And of course we need a bit of blue. So I've got the cerulean blue down here, tucked away. Because I don't think this is a path, I think this is a stream. So we'll make it a stream. And this is just the first coat, just to see what we can do with oils on paper. But this has been gessoed with homemade gesso. With homemade gesso, with talcum powder. Because I wanted a really, really thin. Oh, bye Dorothy, take care darling, have a good afternoon. Thanks for popping in. Probably have a little bit of this brown if we get a bit back here to just put some rocks in. And there was a bit of a rock here, and I think this is a bit of a rock as well. That was grass, and I think down here there was some kind of stones things. I've actually done them brown, so I shouldn't have done really, but yeah. So it is behaving itself a lot better than I thought it would. And again, I'm using it very, very, very. I'm going to put that green there. See if we can get a little bit of green back on there here. To the back of that tree. So I think we've got all those in here. So we can start thinking about how we're going to paint things now. Just going to clean the brushes. And I don't normally clean the brushes, it's just that this oil's a bit stickier than normal. So. But it's just nice to wash your brushes out into water. And we'll get rid of that colour. So I'm making a bit of a mess at the moment, but I'm having a good play. Oh, good night, Travis. Thank you for stopping in. See, this is a bit like watching oil paint dry, but it's an experiment on this kind of paper, which I've mixed with homemade gesso made with talcum powder. But I will be putting a little bit of sugar in a tablespoon of vinegar and mixing it in this big pot, and that will preserve it. That's a natural preservative. So we can have a look at mixing our greens now. So we want some more of this French ultramarine, this Elysian cerulean blue. Sorry, brain's not in gear. And we want some lemon yellow. And I'm going to move those away because I'm not using them. And they're in disgrace, so they're going over there. And I'm going to start making some greens. Now it depends how you want to work. I work quite thin, and I intend to work thin in the paper books because the Harry Potter books are thin. They are thin, so they're going to want a fairly thin. I love this page. I'm going to have to break the spines though, so I can get the gesso into the spine. So I'll be gessoing that in a minute, and then we can have a go in there. But this is all to build up for Art in the Abbey at the beginning of the year probably. So we can go in there, do some decent drawings, followed up with some quite decent. Now this is quite thin. This is consistency of single cream will give you a glaze. Consistency of double cream should give you a thicker one. It's just not stopping on here, but it will do. It probably will do. No, I don't like that. I mustn't do that because I'll destroy all that lovely colour I've made. Tried that before and it didn't work. So I think it's something to do with the oils. I'm not sure. I'll have to have a look. So I want quite a nice texture on here. It's a little bit thin actually. I would have liked it a little bit thicker. Because it's behaving more as a glaze, and I didn't really want it to do that. And I can wipe it off, and I didn't want it to do that either. So I think it's maybe because it could do with a couple of coats of gesso. So we'll I'm not getting a nice consistency really. But you can build up the colour in thin layers. Sorry, the puppy's snoring away. But yeah, it's an experiment. This is oil paint. So you just got to remember not to touch it. Because if you touch it, I mean, this may not work. Acrylics might be better, but we've had to play with the oils. Sorry, somebody's up now. So there's no actually glaze in here. It's all just oil paint. So I think this will be green as well on here. So if I can get a nice key down, we should be all right for next time. It was an experiment. And we'll have some pale greens up here, still in frame. But this is a bit of a practice to play with oils, so that when we go to the Abbey, I might know what I'm doing. So, has anybody else got these water mixable paints? They've been out a long time. And as I say, there's just something really nice about, I mean, I'm using these extremely thinly, almost like watercolours. But I do that, you know, it doesn't matter whether I'm working in oils or acrylics. I do kind of work in the same consistency. Maybe a slightly better tooth would be better. I'll try the bought gesso. And see if that makes a difference. But as I say, I really wanted this fine talcum powder kind of thing, really, if I could. But you can start playing about with more and more colour and putting more and more detail in. And it's behaving itself quite well, considering it's just water and not but it won't do that when we get to the ab on proper canvas. It will not do this on proper canvas. But I'm hoping to get more and more detail on there. Again, there's some greenery up here. And we could use this up here for a highlight on this one. It's not quite dry, this, so I may have to let this dry first. You can't work oil over oil when it's wet. It doesn't like it. I might just get away with the brown though. So we'll just do the brown, and then I'll make gesso a few more pages, just to make sure I've got the right tooth. So I'm going to use a touch of this is quite a dark brown, so I could have probably just left the burnt umber. And I think this is a bit big, too big, this brush. I'm not going to get a decent point on there, am I? I might do. Oops, I just touched the green. So you can get some quite nice detail on here. And you decide where the sun's coming. You can then get some nice shadows in there. So if anybody's got any questions, pop them in cap. Oh, thanks, Travis. Don't get too tired though, because it works both ways. Sometimes it tires you out watching, and sometimes it keeps you awake all night. So welcome back, but it's nice to get a little bit more detail on and build it up. I made quite a deep rock colour here, so again, there's a bit of a, and this will be dark here. So I put a bit of Payne's grey in there, and that is going to get me a really dark, too dark for this section at the moment. But again, I can't now touch it. It's not like watercolour. This is oil. It's got to dry. As much as I want to keep playing in there, I've got to leave it, which is something I'm not used to doing. I'm used to being able to play. But I can use this brown up here, and this is dried now, so it's drying quite well, I have to say. It is drying quite well. And we could have these kind of cracks and crevices and things. And that's going to be a highlight there, so this could be in a little bit of shadow here, a bit darker, because I've put the sunlight hitting that way on the tree. So as long as you remember now everything's coming that way with lighter or darker, you should be fine. So this can be dark, and then this can be the same. And then you want a shadow behind that bit. Maybe that bit. And this is very rough. You can play about as much as you want later on. That's going to be a slightly different colour there. So again, slightest amount of water. This can be a richer colour, and it's dried, so I can actually play on this bit now. But again, you've got to remember it's a rock, so it's got to be downwards a little bit. And then this can be kind of the palest. It is behaving itself quite well, this oil paint, considering it's on a just a piece of paper from a sketchbook, colouring in book rather, sorry. But now I've just put that kind of base coat down, I've got to leave it now. I can't touch it anymore. And that's a bit tacky, but this is dried because this is quite thin. So again, we can go and clean the brush. And I need a bit bigger brush actually than that. And I'm quite enjoying this kind of bluey colour because it's going to be the same as the sky, but we could do with a bit of and again, about single cream, double cream. It's got to have a bit of a flow to it. You need to be a bit thicker when you get more detail, but we just want to. And water always goes horizontal, never goes to vertical, unless it's a waterfall, because you'll have some really horrid lines in it if you do. And sometimes that builds some quite nice ripples, quite naturally. I think I want that a bit thicker than that. Again, this is not quite behaving itself as I'd like it to. But we may have got to that bit where Yeah, I'd use the glaze on here so it doesn't like it. You can tell the difference. It's splitting. But it's going to give me a base coat, and then I'll just leave it to dry. It's definitely leaving some bits and bobs on that. And that's going to be like this shiny bit here. That's going to take overnight to dry, whereas the greens, because I've just used water, that's going to dry quicker. So it wasn't bad for an experiment. As I say, I think acrylics probably will behave a lot better than oils, but I didn't think it would work. It was an experiment. So I've got another page that I pulled out. This was the thinnest one, and that's tacky, is this one. So let's see if we can make some more green. And we'll just have a play at this one because it's got smaller. I got all the palette knives out and I don't know what I did with them now. I'm going to make a different green this time. I'll scrape this over here so we can see what I'm doing. Oh no, I won't. That's got that nasty oil in it. I'll just go up here a little bit. So that's really flat. So there's no oils in that one. I can't understand why it is. But I'll suss that out. So this is quite a nice wash. You've just got to be careful not to use too much water. And again, quite like the idea. Just giving this a green wash. And this is the thinner gesso. And this is really, really, really thin, watered down. As you would a wash, but normally put a wash over everything. And I couldn't get that with the other, but I can now. So you want really a brown wash over everything. A glaze. And then it'll have a consistency about it. It's not normally green, but it will be fine. It's normally it's a bit thin, is this really, but we'll see what happens. It's normally raw umber or raw sienna. It's a pale yellow ochre will do as well. You just want a very pale neutral colour, and this is not a pale neutral colour, but it's an experiment. And this water oil bases paints are behaving themselves quite well, so we'll let this dry and see what that does. we'll let that dry and see if that's going to sort out some troubles. I'll just clean the palette and then we may as well go ahead and gesso this because I think it's going to need 2 coats. So I'll try and break the spine. So the pages were out of this book. Didn't tell you what the thing is, so that's where the pages were from. So just see if I can break the spine as much as possible without doing too much damage. In fact, I've just changed my mind. I'm going to practice on another page first with acrylics. So we've got this page to do. I can't get to mine, so I'm just going to have a go with this gesso. This is the one we get from the works. Granny blanket back on. Oh, sorry, the name of the colour book was Creating Colour for Adults. I'm not sure where I got it from, but I didn't spend that. I just thought it would be okay to use. Now this gesso I haven't used for a while. This is from the works. It's just cheapy gesso. But I don't think it's going to be too... We'll see what happens. Oh, I've realised I can't use that. Idiot's test, because it's... Oh, I can actually. It's... Oh, right. This is white acrylic. So it's got acrylic paint in it. And I would have thought that would have completely distorted the page, and it hasn't. So I'll get the little brush out that I was using and see if I can dry it out a bit. I put the other one on with a palette knife, but I don't think I like that, so I'm going to just move that out of the way. Put a little protector. Yes, I do. I do. Suzanne says I need a rubber thingy to. I do, but I haven't got one. I did have one and I gave it to my mum-in-law thinking I would buy another one, and then I never got round to it. I think this brush is probably a little bit too big, but hey ho. I much prefer a credit card to give you a flat surface, but having said that, we're playing with oils, so And you put it on with a brush. I have my stone frame. I think these are quite old, so that's the problem, getting things on and off. I've got, there's a mat you can get, again from the pound shop, and it's pink, and it's rubber holes things, and it's for putting in the bottom of your drawers to stop things slipping about. And I used that yesterday, and that worked quite well. I gave it to my husband because he couldn't open a jar. So that works quite well because it's still rubber, because the ones you buy specially are quite expensive. So if I find them in the pound shop, I buy them. But these are the pinky little hold. They've got holes punched out of them. They actually work as well. So I'm using this acrylic to see if it gives a better tooth. And again, this is only so it keeps the pattern. So this is white acrylic paint from the cheap paint. So I'm just going to put that to dry, and I'm going to do another one so we can see if the ink, if the oil paintings are going to work better than the acrylics. Because I don't like my oil paints at the moment. So we'll do another one, and then we've got two to play with. And actually I can do that with a, it's a lot thinner, is that? I've just got to be careful I don't pick the stuff up with it, that's all. No, I've decided I'm going to do it with a brush because I want a key. So normally when you're doing a canvas, you go across and then you finish on a downward stroke, and then you go across and you do a downward or an upward stroke. So everything's even. I'm going in the right direction. Sorry, there'll be a puppy alert in a second, so I apologise, but he's not going to sleep through that. So across to get it on there and a good coating, and then a downward stroke. And if you were doing a proper canvas, you would do a coat down, let it dry, a coat across, let it dry, and then a coat down, and you could even sand in between if you want it very fine. Depends on what you want to do. And I'm trying to waffle so he can't hear the post, he can't hear the bin man. So we'll put that to dry. Hopefully he's not going to see it, but there could be a puppy alert any second now. When the bottles start rattling, I apologise in advance. Yes, here he goes. Here he goes, bless him. Sorry, I apologise. Yeah. It does prove that he is still with us. Sorry about this. And if I'm clever enough to dry this, I can wipe this and it's clean for next time. Sorry about that. So I'm going to put a couple of coats on those so we can see the difference between two coats. Goodness gracious me. So has anybody got any questions? So it's a bit tacky, but it's oil paint, water-based oils. And the only thing is you can feel the sticky oil in your hands, really. It doesn't go away. Oh, sorry. You can still tell that he's still with us. Yes, Alfie, we know you're here. I could actually leave that open because I'm going to do another coat. So I've popped it on the lamp on here so it should dry quicker. Hopefully. It should... Sorry, puppy alert. Oh, you've used that as well. Yes, it's quite good. You buy it in a roll to cut for you. Haven't got any near me at the moment. So I was a bit disappointed with these paints. As I say, it might be something with the paper, but I don't think it is. Excuse me. I think it's something to do with the... I've no idea what it is. So we could put some fluffy clouds in there if we really wanted to. Again, I'm using the titanium white, not the zinc, because the zinc white over there, that one is for mixing. This is for clouds. So we put our fluffy clouds there. And so not impressed that I must have got a bit of cleaning solution still in that brush, but it's not going to harm it. So let's see if we can get... Now that's interesting. Yes, I know what it is. It's the binder. It's the binder, because this is just like mixing oil paints with water, look. So if I want to use these oil paints, I have to use... That's what happens when you try and mix oil paint with water. So that's interesting. So it's the binder that's gone then. The binder in the paints, to make it water soluble, don't last forever. So at least I've solved the mystery. Just cleaning all this off here now. Going through baby wipes today. Being a messy girl today. It's not like me. Shelf liner. Thank you, Suzanne. That's what it's called. The shelf liner will open pots as well. And it's bigger as well. So if you've got a big thing, you can get it. Right. So we now know that these paints, it's the paints that are not behaving themselves. So if I get... try this one. But I don't have to waste this, because you can actually mix these with oil paints. You can mix a little bit of oil paint in with these, but you can't mix a lot of these with oil paints, if that makes sense. I think that's the right way around. So my water's looking a bit grotty now. But I mean, this is oil. This is water-based oils. And I'm washing my brush out in that. So that's not bad. It's obviously the mixer, the binder that allows it to be water-based doesn't last long. So I've solved the mystery, so I'm a happy girl, because that was driving me insane. Oh, I like that, a tip book. So I'm going to put water to this one, and it's behaving perfectly normal. This oil here is behaving normal. So let's put a drop of that in it and see if it behaves itself. Oh, yes. So now I have a proper oil paint, so we can do fluffy things. It's not quite dry up here, but so I'm going to have to use these old paints with terps, because the new white is behaving itself. So we can put that in there. And then we can make some fluffy clouds. That's better, it's behaving itself now. You can see that. That's what's supposed to happen. This is the fast drying medium. And that's double cream. So I'm glad I've solved the mystery. That's the mystery solved, so that's quite good. Don't know what those are. I have no idea what those are. And I can fluffy these up as much as I want later if I want to. I just wanted to break that sky up a bit because it was getting on my nerves. Yes, it's the paints. It's the binder in the paints that's kind of gone off. But I should be leaving this to dry because it's not behaving itself at the moment. And then we need a little bit of... Oh, I'm glad I've solved that mystery. It was driving me nuts. I think we'll have a bit of something over here as well. And I don't think they look like clouds, but that's a nice consistency now. It's looking slightly better. So I'm quite pleased I've solved the mystery. So I'm still working quite fairly thin though. And again, we could just have some, and that's almost dried, not quite. So we can put that there because I'm going to make a green, but I want to make a pale green. So I'm going to make put that there. I can't remember what worked and what didn't now, but I'm going to put this here so you can see what I'm doing. And take some of this white. Now this isn't mixable white, so I shouldn't really be mixing with it, but hey ho. So you can mix your colours to start with and then you can play about with them. So I'm actually adding a touch of water into here and then a touch of this. And again, that's behaving itself, so that's quite nice. To be double cream, the same as which is a little bit big now for what I want it for. So I'm going in here. I just want to kind of get a bit of an effect there. I think that's the wrong green for there. Might put that green up here. Put that green up here, and then now this is behaving itself a lot better. So it's the fact that the paints were old, so the binder that makes them mixable, but that means I can use them with terps. That's fine, they've just turned back into. So you can tell, I can tell Windsor Newton that after 20 years they resort back to watercolours, to oil paints. And a bit of colour on here. I don't really like this colour now, it's getting on my nerves. To add a bit of oomph to it. So I hope this isn't too boring, but it is an experiment. I wouldn't have thought so, because to thin it, it's terps for oils. They've turned back into oil paints. As I say, they are oil paints. They're exactly the same as oil paints. It's just that they have an extra binder to them that allows you to mix water to them. So you can wash your brushes out in water. So obviously, after 20 odd years, that binder breaks down, but it won't break down the oil paint and the original oil paint. That's still beautiful oil paint, is that. The only difference is the compound, whatever it was that they used to make it mixable with oils, no longer exists in that tube. It's broken down. And so I can quite easily, but we've got thinners and mixers now that you don't use terps anymore. I use furniture linseed oil because I'm a tight Yorkshire lass. I don't buy linseed oil. But linseed oil wouldn't work with these paints if they were in their normal state, if they were new. So that's why I've got all those thinners for the Artisan. And I think Holborn bring their own out as well. There's 3 or 4 different oil-based, water-based oil companies that make paints, but of course I'm a bit biased when it comes to Windsor Newton. Oh, hi Darker Lady, welcome to Bunny's Designs. And Le Bookworm, and anybody else I've missed? I'm having a bit of a play in here, and I couldn't tell if it was the oils that were wrong, but because these, I used the old tubes up, and of course I've had them, my eldest daughter's 25, 26 now in Christmas, so of course they're not going to last forever. And I suspect what's happened is they're oil paints to start with, and they've resorted back to oil paints. So there's a pigment binder that's allowed them to become water soluble, so you can wash your brushes out. That's obviously disintegrated or evaporated over years, and so they've resorted back to oil paints again. But that's not a problem. I mean, I can use them as oil paints as long as I don't have to throw them away. And that's what that white one looks like. It's just like if you've got an oil paint and you forget and it's mixed in with your others and you add water to it, that's what you get. A lumpy bumpy. Because oil paint will not mix with water. unless you have a specially formulated paint. So I'm just trying to create a little bit more interest into this grass. Now I've got some really nice proper paints to play with. And because it's got one layer of gesso on, it's working quite well. But I really want it to be a little bit thinner than this. Really. I work the consistency of single cream, just like I do with watercolours. But I'm building up some different shades, if that will. So I'm going to do the trees, because everything else is wet now, and this is oil paint. So if I take some, I'll try phthalo blue, and put a blob of phthalo blue into here. And see what we can get. But this is just experimenting with the consistency of how these are going to behave. And so because this is okay now, I know I can use a little bit of this Artisan fast drying medium. So again, it's a bit, I could do with this probably on a little easel, but I should have moved my studio around for next time, and then I'll be able to work on a big surface. So I quite like that dark tree there, and then this is a bit of a dark tree here. The brush is a little bit big for this. I have to switch to a smaller brush because I've got quite a lot of paint clogged in here. So if you've got any questions, pop them in caps. Thanks for stopping in. I'm just playing about with water-based oils that weren't behaving themselves because they were a bit old, but I've sussed out that why, so we've sorted that problem out, so that when we start oil painting in our Harry Potter books, most of the, and because this is oil paint, you can scrape off where you don't want it. Now normally you would have to have a Turk's rug, and I've taken all that off. I didn't need to do that. I could have actually painted it back in. It's a bit of an idiot thing to do, but never mind. So I quite like that darker one to create a bit of something going on under there. And then of course we've got this that's a bit of a nondescript thing, so if we put some, may as well use some of this paint since it may not work properly. I won't be working in terps, that's for sure. Well, you should never say never, should you? I certainly won't be doing it in the Abbey, because it's a danger. Let me just see if I like that colour. No, I don't really like that colour. But it's another layer. Oh dear me, I can't paint today. It's another layer and I need to get this drying medium in so it can dry these layers, because as you say, I can just wipe all this off because it's not dried. And it was a bit too early to get that highlight on that tree, but never mind, it's done now. And that's a little bit too bright, but again, you know, it's done its thing. It's what we wanted it to do. I don't want any dark edges, so just get rid of those. So again, it's just created a little bit more interest. But we really do need that medium in there to, and I don't really like that. So I'm going to get a little bit of blue and put that onto there. And I don't really like that green either. It's not a natural green. That's because I've used phthalo green and I hate phthalo green. You should never do that if you don't like it. Let's see if we can rescue it, because I don't like wasting it. You can always rescue paint if you know what colour to put in it. So I say, oops, too much of that again. Thanks for stopping by. Has anybody got any questions? Just giving this a and then if I can do that one over here. I can to put that yellow on there now. I can probably create a little bit of something going on over here. So the orange has made a really nice, more natural green, I should say. It's holding onto that green, so I'm going to go in there with a wet brush. It's a damp brush. Would have been better without it being too diluted, but never mind. Again, that's giving me a bit more natural colour. And if you've got all these trees going on, you can have a lot of texture and a lot going on. So, do that one as well. And this one. Sorry, I hope I'm in frame. And then if I have a touch more, that should give me a nice green to do a really nice top highlight on all the trees. So it was only an experiment, but it might just work. We might be lucky. It might just actually work. We might be able to do oil painting in the Harry Potter colour book, which would be pretty awesome. I'm just colouring this over a little bit. I still have the dark under painting, but it's just going to give them a bit of continuity because I don't really like these colours. And again, I want just a bit more pale. Oopsie. So there's, again, a little bit more interest in there. Yeah, Hunter's Green and Hooker's Green. I don't like Phthalo Green. I don't know why they shove it in everything. And I don't like Phthalo Blue. They're both fake. I don't like them. I'm a bit of an old fud. I don't like them. I like mixing my own, so I should stick with mixing my own. And I probably will do. I wanted to play with what happened to be there. And what happened to be there is not going to work. So that's fine. But as for the paper holding up, you know, it's going to be a little bit crinkly in your book, but you know, a lot of people's are crinkly, so that's not going to be too bad. So let's see if this is dried. Make sure I don't have anything on my hand. Yeah, I popped it on my lamp. So this is the bought gesso. And I think I'm going to give it, but you see, I find that a bit rough. It's not as smooth as that was. And maybe that's what you need. So we did 2, didn't we? We did 2. That's not quite as dry, that one. So I shall give this another coat. Or if I coat both sides. So I'll get that little thing back again that I folded up. Yes, they are threads. They are threads. If it had been Fred or Fwed, we could have said it, couldn't we? Yes, it's phthalo blue, isn't it? I think, but I call it phthalo blue. There's no effing phthalo, as they say. And it's a really horrible fake colour. I really don't like it. I don't know what he painted with it, but it certainly wasn't trees. Yeah, there's Hooker's Green, Sap Green, and what did you say the other one? Hunter's Green, yeah. Again, I'm going through the baby wipes today. It's not like me. Oopsie, sorry. So put that on here. And again, I'm just going to take the brush. Not sure if I like sticky hands or not. I don't normally work this wet, so I'm going to get this off here because I probably won't use it again. Oops, now there was some water in that, so maybe it's a bit more watered down, but so if we dunk into here, so I'm leaving it 2 coats because it's always, you know, it depends on your canvas. If you're using calico, you want to, but the days of me making my own canvases are gone. I did ask them at uni and to do it, and they all said they would, and then everybody else decided to do something else, so I did it on a piece of chipboard. Never mind, it was fine. And I gessoed it, but I couldn't sand it down because I can't sand with my asthma. So it was a bit of a disaster, but never mind. So it's got another coat on it as that. Oops, I've got a bit of a bubble. So that should have given it quite a good coating now. Phthalo. That's how I pronounce it, phthalo. But I'm sure other people have different ideas. In fact, there's a little canvas here, look. You could do this. There's a little canvas. And if you buy canvases ready gessoed, always gesso them again, because they're gessoed with the cheapest, nastiest stuff on the planet. So always do them again. Whoopsie. And the thing is, I can't. I think I might have to stick to my little paintbrushes after this. So that can go sit over there. And then we can take this one down and pop it over there. So, you know, it's only an experiment, but it shows that we can get a little bit of oil paint onto right. So that was, oops, I want that flat, and it's not flat because my glasses case, oops, which is now covered in, oopsie, that's not a good idea, was it? I've just put gesso all over the laptop. Oh dear, that's not a good idea. Just let me see if I can wipe it off the keys. Silly girl. Yeah, Suzanne says that Hooker's Green is one of her faves. You normally, again, you know if you have a good set with Hooker's Green, but I must admit, I'm getting white gesso on everything now. Painted my glasses case, painted the wire. Everything's getting a coat of gesso. This is why I don't do things anymore. Now I know why I don't do them anymore. Right, I've got one coat on there, but this is going to be for acrylics. So I can wash this brush out now. Yes, I can put that into here. I can put the lid on the gesso. And I can put this somewhere to wash that off. Right, so I now have to find. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave those here. I'm going to clean this. I'm going to scrape this off here. I'm going to put that phthalo blue back where it belongs. I'm going to put that one back where it belongs. And I'm going to put that white there. and I haven't wasted too much paint there. So I'm going to put these pots here, which they do want the lids on, and I don't know where they are. That can go in there. That's to go back into its little pot. So I can take this away, and this is what you do. And if that's not too badly coated, you can leave it there. And you just put this in the bin, and you're done. And because I'm putting the colours on here, I'm going to use this. I'm just hoping I had a bit more. I mean, you could spray it if you wanted a neater job of the water. But under all these lights, it's dried out a bit. And then so that's the practice in the oils. I'm going to stop this video and start it and do with acrylics. I think this has gone on for an hour or so. So thanks for watching, and part 2 or part 3 will be acrylics on colouring pages.